everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back again with another exciting news video. Tom has already covered some news in his first video. I'm covering the rest of all of the news in this video. So without any further ado, let's take a look at those lovely headlines. First of all, a top WWE star almost appeared on the first episode of AEW Dynamite. Next up, we take a look at an update on WWE's new social media policy. And finally, there was an interesting heel turn on last night's Monday Night Raw. First up, it was revealed on the Talk and Shop podcast between Anderson and Gallows and the Young Bucks that a top WWE star was supposed to debut alongside Gallows and Anderson, which also never happened, on the first edition of Dynamite. And it's been heavily implied by various news sources online, first of which I believe was probably Wrestling Inc., that this was supposed to be AJ Styles. So first of all, the background to this, we already knew that Gallows and Anderson were supposed to rock up on the first edition of Dynamite, but we now know they have since themselves revealed that WWE basically convinced them to sign a new deal, and then when, lockdown hit and in that post-WrestleMania wave of releases, Gallows and Anderson were unfortunately released. A decision that, has understandably left them feeling quite bitter at WWE. But on this edition of their podcast, Matt Jackson said, people don't realise that when we were pitching to have you guys come in, it wasn't just going to be the two of you, it was going to be another person who I won't name, but another Bullet Club person who you may not want to talk about. Again, this is heavily implied. It's not 100% AJ Styles. It could be, for example, Finn Balor, but, there are clues in the conversation that the identity of the man in question is AJ. Matt Jackson continued by saying, when we were originally going to do Dynamite, we were going to debut at Madison Square Garden. After the match, three of you, not just the two of you, the three of you were going to jump the guardrail and we were going to have like a Bullet Club reunion. We were going to throw up the two sweet and the three of you were going to jump us, the Young Bucks, and make us bloody and destroy us, and we'd be off to the races. Obviously, this didn't work out. Matt Jackson then said, I remember the first guy in this conversation that we're talking about right now, the mysterious Bullet Club guy, the guy that it's been heavily speculated was supposed to be AJ Styles. He rang us and he's like, I just got too good of an offer and I would have never gotten this offer without your guys' offer, so I just wanted to say thank you. And there were a few little clues in the conversation. At one point, somebody did an impression of the guy or said the word freaking, basically, which is apparently maybe a little bit of a joke about how AJ Styles never swears, never curses in real life. So maybe that heavily implies that it was AJ. I don't quite know, but out of the main candidates out there, it's probably going to have either have been AJ or Balor, isn't it? And I think that AJ seems the likely candidate. But you never know. As I say, they did not name the guy specifically, so for all we know, it could have been, look at me now trying to furiously think who else was in Bullet Club who's now in WWE. Is there anyone? Is it just those two? Is it just Styles and Balor? Captain New Japan. It could have been Captain New Japan for all we know. It's not him, he's very much not in WWE. Next up, let's talk about Dave Meltzer's update on WWE's social media policy changes. This caused a bit of a stir recently, with WWE apparently saying that they didn't want their superstars doing their own Twitch streams, their own Twitch accounts, or indeed things like Cameo, which again raised this whole debate about, they're meant to be independent contractors. How can you control what kind of stuff they put out when they're not on your clock? Well, according to Meltzer, talent was told at Raw last night that they will be able to keep their YouTube and Twitch accounts, their streaming, platforms, but will have to use their real names rather than their WWE stage names. They were also told they would have to inform the company of these accounts. Now, obviously, last week, talent had been told by the company that they weren't allowed to market themselves using their real names, so this new development seems to contradict that, and now they can only use their real names. I don't quite know. So that is the deal with YouTube and Twitch, but there is still confusion apparently when it comes to Cameo. The belief is that talent will have to remove itself from the platform completely, but details on this are still, in quotation marks, super vague. But at least it's a step in the right direction, or at least the beginnings of a step back in the right direction. It's kind of a case at the moment of 3 steps backwards, 2 steps forwards, because we first had WWE saying, no, we don't want anything, no Twitch, no YouTube, no Cameo, and now they've allowed them to continue streaming under their own names, but Cameo still seems to be a no-go for whatever reason. I don't quite understand. Yes, of course, the argument could be made that, without WWE's platform, they wouldn't be able to be on Cameo and make money off their own names, but at the same time, that's completely discrediting the effort that the individuals themselves have put in, building themselves up to this stature. So it's a murky situation, but one where it is quite easy to fall on the side of the wrestlers, and indeed I do fall on the side of the wrestlers. I think that, it would be a lot nicer if WWE would have just let them do that. they are, after all, independent contractors, and WWE are very quick to churn that phrase out when this kind of issue arises. So treat them like they are, essentially. Next up, let's take a look at Thunder Rosa's thoughts following her appearance at AEW All Out. It was a very noteworthy, very incident-filled show, of course, very controversial in places, most notably because of Matt Hardy's injury and the fact that he carried on and completed the match. There was also unfortunate moments for the likes of, for example, Matt Sydal, but he seems to be fine, slipping off the top rope and botching that shooting star press. But he was able to complete the match and did seem to be fine, so hopefully it'll all be okay for him. But one of the positive points of a very contentious show was the AEW women's title match between the champion Hikaru Shida and the challenger and NWA women's champion Thunder Rosa. She was a new face to AEW. Apparently she's not really she's not signed a full-time contract or anything. She was kind of on loan from the NWA, but she impressed a lot. And she didn't just impress in that match with Hikaru Shida, she also impressed on Dynamite a few days before, taking on Serena Deeb, and in just 2 matches has built herself quite a new fan base of AEW fans who perhaps were not familiar with her prior to this past week gone. Well, after her match at All Out, Thunder Rosa shared her thoughts on the match via Instagram, and she said, "Never, ever, ever, ever give up on yourself. When you least expect things, God will bless you with the biggest challenges and opportunities." NWA and Billy Corgan, thank you so much for letting me represent the company on such a huge platform. And to All Elite Wrestling and Tony Khan, thanks for taking me with open arms. This last 3 weeks have been pretty amazing. The fact we made fans talk about #women's wrestling and ask for more is a testament that we, women, can take center stage and main event on any show. The fans enjoyed it and are ready for more. Hikaru Shida, I'm ready for round 2. So there, with a very nice statement there, Thunder Rosa makes it clear that she wants another match with Hikaru Shida. Of course she does, why wouldn't you want another match on AEW? But she also was thankful towards the NWA and Billy Corgan, or I should say William Patrick Corgan as he now goes by. And in fact, that is what he was tagged as, so I shouldn't use his informal name. Sorry, Billy. Love Smashing Pumpkins and all that. Anyway, she did, give credit to Corgan and the NWA and to Khan and AEW. She seems in a really good position right now. Seems like she's wanted from all sides, and that's really, really good for her. And I think it's smart that she's angling for another match with Hikaru Shida, because I feel like AEW would be making a good move by booking that sort of match. Do you agree? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next up, there was an intriguing heel turn on last night's Monday Night Raw, and it was none other than Cedric Alexander turning heel. No! He was the soul of 205 Live, remember that? Yeah, well, there was a 6-man tag match between the Hurt Business and Apollo, Ricochet and Cedric turned on them, costing them the match and seeming to side with the Hurt Business, MVP's heel stable. And while this didn't seem to be a plan that the Hurt Business had, they didn't all celebrate smugly together like, yes, Cedric, we've fooled them. It did seem like they'd got in his head recently. Remember, MVP was trying to talk to Cedric, saying, your teammates don't value you, why don't you come and join us instead? And Cedric seemed to sort of half take that on board, but not really commit to it. Well, now it seems like he's gone through with that advice. And indeed, a photo was later put out on social media later on in the night, which basically confirmed that Cedric has indeed joined the Hurt Business. Now, I think this is good. It's obviously, you've got to balance the positives and negatives here. One negative is that we don't know how good Cedric can be as a heel, really. I've never seen him as a heel. He comes across as very likable and he's an exciting wrestler, so he's more of a natural babyface in my mind. But we'll see how it goes. Often, really good babyfaces can also be really good heels. At the same time, it's good news, I think, because Cedric it means he's kind of in line for a push, doesn't it? And Cedric hasn't received a push since that feud with AJ Styles, what feels like ages ago, when he was just really easily beaten by Styles and it didn't make much sense. And a lot of people were saying that Vince had just lost interest in him. Well, now this sort of reset for Cedric, this new refreshing heel turn, can only be a good thing in my mind, and I hope that it leads to good things going forwards for him, because I'm a big fan. And finally, also on last night's Raw, Retribution. Oh yes, Retribution finally made a statement. They didn't show up and just beat up everybody and break the ring and the ringside area this time. No, they appeared on the screen and cut a promo. They had voice disguised technology happening, so we couldn't quite work out whose voice it was. But 2 of them spoke, and this is what they said. The interruption, by the way, came in the middle of a handicap match between Nia Jax and Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott. The lights went down, the screens in the Thunderdome shut off, their new logo appeared, all white and spray painted, and then they spoke. And they said, this Thunderdome is only a facade. Behind this mountain of screens is the same foundation, the same WWE as before, the same behemoth that discarded and disowned us, leaving us to survive in an unfair world where the powerful continue to grow while we are left to feed off nothing but the scraps of contempt. They went on to say, but contempt is a powerful motivator. We are driven to destroy, to lay waste to every superstar and every fan. Blinded, you cannot see what you do not have, so the locust of contempt will feed upon you all. The darkness of Retribution will seep into the pores of every superstar and all of your so-called universe. We are Retribution. So that's interesting. The whole stuff about being cast out by WWE and left to feed off the scraps and everything, a little bit too close to the bone for my liking, because of course WWE released a whole load of wrestlers during a global pandemic, and a lot of the criticism thrown at them was along those lines, like, you've cut these people loose during a time when they need employment the most. How dare you? Is this deliberately close to that sort of theme? And if so, are we going to see any of those released or furloughed members of WWE's locker room brought back? I don't know. I mean, the ones who were furloughed were producers, of course, production team and everything. But are we going to see any of the released superstars come back? And if so, they've managed to keep that very quiet, haven't they? Maybe not. Maybe it'll be like Performance Center guys and stuff. There's a lot of talk that the group might be led by Dominik Dijakovic from NXT. So we'll have to see where it goes. An intriguing development, but one that sat a little bit uncomfortably with me, to be honest. But that's it for this news video. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, do check out Tom's earlier news video today if you've missed it on this very channel. Leave your thoughts and opinions on any of these stories in the comments section down below. And thanks very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.